everything that you're facing right now and everything that you're going to face up to $100,000 a month in commission, we have already fixed it. We've already solved it for you. It's all going to be laid out for you. UM and I build out the Unicorn Closer Mastermind. What we're basically doing is taking everything that it took me to get to $100,000 a month, which is, you know, what training, you know, what internal training, etc. But we're also going back through the challenges that I faced and then seeing when you guys and girls have the same challenges and laying everything out so that each thing that you need has a piece of training for it. And I don't know if any of you have ever looked at UCM and gone, oh, this is like a roadmap. Like Josh or UM have already seen what challenge I'm going to face in the next month or in the next 2 months. So for example, we have the live events because we know for all of you, you'll get to a point where you have made the money that you wanted to make as your previous goal and you think you've now made it. So we have the events every 3-4 months so that you come to something like this and realize, oh, I'm actually still poor, relatively speaking, okay? And so as we're going through kind of all the roadmap, we're labeling everything so that you can have more of an easier way of seeing what's around the corner, because if you, UM and I call it thingify things, if you give something a name, it's easier to remember it. And so what I wanted to do, it won't be a long training, is just go through all of the different concepts that we've got in the Unicorn Closer Mastermind so far, so that you can start drawing the map in your own mind of, as you're going through this journey of going from where you're at now in your commissions to where you want to get to, whatever that number is, you'll be able to very easily recall, okay, that thing that I'm going to need is this thing, or that thing I'm going to need is this thing, and you'll see the map for everything that it is. Does that make sense, everyone? Mm-hmm. Okay.
You said with the, like our recent call.
You're not supposed to mention the name, but yes, exactly. That's right. Exactly. So the first thing, the highest level thing, and this is going to be like a map of like a hierarchy, the highest level thing that you always need to revert back to is the principle of self-actualized selling. Not scriptless selling, not internal mastery, but self-actualized selling. Does anybody know what that means? Self-actualized selling.
I mean, it's just internal. You sell.
No, not just internal.
Yourself.
Highest version of yourself.
Is it just like, I don't know if it's for guiding myself as opposed to for the prospect into their own realization? Is that what you mean?
Nope, not that.
Is it like through going through your own roadblocks in your own life and unlocking all of the things from within, you'll be able to do that with your prospect?
Pretty much, yes. It's the concept that this version of selling, which UM and I believe, and I think we've proved it, is the most powerful version of selling, is simply the idea of you being the hero of the story, the hero or the heroine, the hero of the journey. Wherever you're at now as a human being, if you keep getting better and better and better as a human being, this is your level of your development and this is your level of sales results. You get better, your sales results go up. You get better, your sales results go up. So the methodology that we're teaching is not a sales methodology, is the pattern that as you get better as a human being, you will make more money in sales. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the first thing to always go back to whenever you're not making the money you want is go, bring it back to me. Bring it back to, I'm the hero of this story. I'm the hero of this journey. Where do I need to get better? Okay? So that's the highest level thing. And I recommend all of you write this down, by the way. As in, like, you probably want to draw it out as like a hierarchy. All right, guys. So at the top of your diagram, you have actualized selling. Okay? Underneath that, it splits into two things. What are those two things, guys? Very good. Internal mastery and scriptless selling. Okay, so if you want to actually follow the process of self-actualized selling, which means as you become a better person, you will make more money in sales, there are only two things as far as training materials that you need to focus on. Okay, so you could call that training materials. You've got internal training materials and you've got scriptless selling training materials. So any type of personal development training and any type of getting better at having a scriptless selling conversation. Focus on those two and you're on the path for self-actualized selling. Is that clear? Okay. Now, the next ones are not really in order. There is a rough order, but they overlap a little bit. So just write it down wherever you want to, however you want. But realize that this page that you'll have in front of you is now a map of you going from wherever you're at now in commissions to $100,000 a month in commissions. If you do everything I tell you and follow this map, it is impossible that you don't land at that destination, okay? The next part, again, not in a specific order, so just the next one I'm giving you, is the formula for excellence. As you're doing your internal mastery, as you're doing your scriptless selling, you have to follow that formula of excellence, which you could say is how you're showing up to the internal mastery training and how you're showing up to the scriptless selling training. So who remembers the formula for excellence? Correct. So imagine if you were doing your internal mastery training for 2 weeks. What's going to happen? You're not going to get very far because it doesn't follow the formula for excellence. What happens if you decide, you know what, I'm just going to do my own internal mastery training. I'm not going to have a mentor. I'll just figure it out on my own. You may get there, but the likelihood is it would take you multiple decades, if ever, to ever arrive at it because you're trialing and erroring all sorts of different things. Another version is you say, right, for the next 5 years, I'm going to do scriptless selling training and I'm going to do 5 minutes a day. Not massive action, okay? So you've got self-actualized selling is the principle we're following. Internal mastery and scriptless selling is what we're actually going to physically do. And following the formula for excellence is how we're going to approach the internal mastery and the scriptless selling. Make sense? Okay. Next one is the unicorn trifecta, which is more of a tactical version of the formula for excellence. The formula for excellence is more, this is how I'm showing up with time, with massive action, with mentorship. We then have the unicorn trifecta, which is more, how do we bring that into tangibles? So you could probably draw that as the triangle, guys, if you want to draw it as the triangle. Who remembers the unicorn trifecta? Unicorn offer, how you're showing up day to day. And what's the third and final one, guys? Nope. Third and final one, guys, is the scheduling of your internal mastery training and your scriptless selling training. Actually scheduling it in, your practice of those things. So hopefully you're starting to see the pattern, guys, that these things all layer into each other. If in your unicorn closer trifecta, you schedule in your scriptless selling training and you schedule in your internal mastery training, and those things allow you to get onto the unicorn offer, and through the internal mastery training and following the formula for excellence, you are now showing up at your highest level every single day. You are now following the unicorn closer trifecta. Okay? Now we get into some more momentary trainings, which means as you're going through your journey, you're going to hit these roadblocks, okay? The first part of going through the journey is you have to see what those steps are going to look like. Does anybody remember the training I did of the money chokeholds? Okay, so we have 7 steps, so you probably want to draw a line from left to right. On the very left is, you can just put it as 0, which doesn't mean you're making $0 a month in commissions right now. It means you're making $0 more than your current amount. So if you're at 20K, 20K plus 0 means you're just at 20K. You're at wherever you're at right now. So draw a line, and on that line you need 7 points along that line. So this is now your path.
So starting with your current earnings.
Well, I would just write that as 0, but you could put your current earnings on the very left, and then on the very right is obviously $100,000. You should then have 5 points along the line, because you've got the very left, the very right, and then 5 additional dashes along the line. Okay? Who remembers what those points are on the path? Anybody remember? The chokeholds that are stopping you from being already at $100,000 a month in commissions. Anybody remember what those chokeholds are? Nope.
Not being, well, one of them was not performing at your best, showing up at all times.
It's not the first one. It's what? In what sense? What does that show up as for a closer? Once you've done your basic training, guys, the very first thing that you need to remove to get to the next level financially is to stop having these days, weeks, or months where you're in a rut. Because if you've got 12 months of the year and you spend 1 week every month, you have now spent 3 months total in a rut. Okay? 12 weeks. So the first thing is you need to remove your ruts, which are the whole weeks or the whole months where you're just not on point. Second one, guys, what's the second one?
Was that over a longer period, wasn't it?
Other direction. Not over a longer period, that would be the rut busting.
And so a shorter time frame. The calls that you're wasting.
Correct. Individual calls where call to call to call to call, you do not show up in the right state. So even though you have your training, you've done your basic sales training, you have the skills, you know how to close, you are washing away calls simply because you're not bringing the correct foundational state to the call. Okay? Everyone got those down? Okay, so we've got 3 more. What are the other 3, guys?
I don't know the right order. I know one of them is
Before, is that, okay, yes, but is that next? Why is it not next, guys?
because
In the path.
Done the other two, you shouldn't increase the volume.
you don't
Correct.
even have
What-
access to.
Yeah, you'll just burn through calls. What should you be doing instead of, and that one, guys, is the penultimate one, which is going all in. So that's the penultimate one. The final one, guys, is the 4D connectivity, which you can write under the 100K. Going all in is the one before that. What's the one before going all in? Correct, yep, you need to get on a unicorn offer.
The other one's mastering, along the lines of mastering scripted selling.
Correct. And then the final one is mastering your scriptless selling, which is simply going all in on sales training, actually mastering the scriptless selling training.
I feel like we went out of order. Now I got it.
What's that?
I feel like we went out of order. So I have no ruts, individual calls not in the right state, and
Then you want to spend all of your additional time getting better at sales, doing your scriptless selling training. Once you've increased your close rate percentage on your current offer to the best that you can get it to, you then take that heightened call close rate and you demonstrate that to the public, Facebook groups, reaching out to offer owners, hey, I'm at an 85% close rate, I want to get on your offer. Boom, you'll get on that offer overnight, super easy. You then get on the unicorn offer. Once you're now on the unicorn offer, you've increased your leverage because your price point is going to be higher, plus you'll probably have better leads, plus you'll probably have more leads. You then go from working whatever it was before 4 or 5 days a week to 6 or 7 days a week. And all of those leverage points are the chokeholds that will take you from where you're at now to $100,000 a month in commissions. If you look at that pathway, guys, plus combining it with all the stuff you've written above, it is impossible, if you fix all of those money chokeholds, that you don't hit $100,000 a month. If you no longer get in ruts, if you no longer waste calls that could have closed, that should have closed, that you didn't close, simply because you wasted the call by not turning up to it the right way, if you then actually master scriptless selling, which is data gathering, being able to do the probing and the clarifying, being able to actually challenge someone if they need to be challenged, having all the 4 core pillars down, having a professional background, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you then get onto a unicorn offer. You're now going to potentially double your amount of money simply because you're closing at a higher price point and having better quality leads and having more leads. You then increase from 5 days a week to 7 days a week, and then you tap into the 4D connectivity, which is where you're now bringing that energy and that spirituality to everything you're doing, which means you're just going to keep attracting good prospects, easier sales. You do all of those things in that order, wherever you're at now. If you're even at 5K a month right now, being here at this mastermind, you will get to 100K a month. It's impossible to not do it. Okay? So that's what we've got so far. Any questions so far? Anybody confused?
But I observed
Observation?
here my trajectory here, and it's funny because I think a lot of people will get stuck at going all in.
Stuck in what way?
If they get on the unicorn offer and they're making more because they're selling a better, higher ticket item, right? Like it's very easy to not increase your volume and time on it because they get maybe in the dead
Excited.
zone or, like comfortable, whereas before they had to maybe work harder.
So are you saying that they get on the unicorn offer and then they're no longer spending the time doing the training that they needed to? Is that what you're saying?
No, because they're making more, selling something that's more expensive and not having to go, like, they're comfortable. They're like, oh, I actually don't have to work as hard as I was working before because,
Yeah.
I feel like they could get a chokehold there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. We'll get into the dead zone as well. But what Nicole's saying is really important, guys, is if you do these things in the wrong order, you will get stuck because you're doing it in the wrong order. What I thought Nicole was saying, which is similar but a different example, is you may find yourself getting onto a unicorn offer before you've mastered scriptless selling. There's no issue if that happens unless you don't remember to go backwards a step and fix the previous step as well. So what people would usually do is they're on a shit offer, they're working 5 days a week, and they're telling themselves the story, I'm only gonna work 5 days a week because I don't have much leverage because I'm on a bad offer. They then get themselves on a good offer and they go, you know what, I'll work 6 days a week or 7 days a week. Now they've missed a step, which is having all of the time to master scriptless selling. And what that means is you'll never get to the next level of income because you're not actually putting in the input, which is the time and effort to get better at selling because you're spending all your time doing the selling. And that means you'll have a percentage close rate, let's say it's 40%, 50% on your new unicorn offer. It will always stay at 40 or 50% because the way to get it from 40 to 80 is to remove some of the days or some of the calls and do the training that you need to. In other words, reviewing your calls, turning up to live calls, doing the role play training, doing the one-on-one calls with me. If you're on a unicorn offer and you say, I don't have time to do that, then have fun staying at the close rate you're at now forever. The only way you can increase your close rate is that step on this 7 steps, which is actually putting in the time to master scriptless selling, which, by the way, goes back to the unicorn trifecta. How much time do you have scheduled in to do your internal mastery training or internal mastery actions, because it's not always training, and doing your scriptless selling training? What I mean by it's not always actions is you're now on a unicorn offer. You're so excited about the fact you've got these great leads and you've got this great price point. So you say, you know what, that 45-minute morning walk, I'll just take an extra sales call there. And then all of a sudden you've cut out that morning walk 7 days a week and you're no longer in the internal mastery good state. You're stressed all the time. You think you're moving ahead, but you're actually taking 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. You've made more money because you're just taking more calls. But the skill set of a unicorn closer is not making more by doing more, it's making more by having more leverage. And these are the 7 leverage points. Number 1, accepting the reality that you're not where you want to be. Part of how we do that, turning up to events like this and going, oh shit, I'm broke. My $10,000 a month is no fucking money. Second point is removing the chokehold of no matter what unicorn offer you're on, no matter how good your close rate, if every month you spend a week in a rut, you have lost 25% of your yearly income. 25%, guys. Even if you were able to hit 100K, that would bring you back down to 75K a month because you spend 1 week every month in a rut. Then you've got to remove the fact that no matter how good your skills are or how good your offer is, if you're wasting your leads because you're bringing the wrong state to individual calls, you're just burning through leads, and so on and so forth. Okay? All right, as we're going through that, there's some additional ones that you have to have clear. So Nicole brought up the dead zone. Who knows what the dead zone is, guys? Comfortable in what sense? That's true, but explain it more elaboratively.
You made 20,000, figure out you're making 30,000, you're like, oh, this is enough.
Yes, it's enough for what you already wanted to remove yourself from previously. So if you were making as a 9-to-5er and you then got into sales, as a 9-to-5er you were making $5,000 a month, just a random number. And because of that 5 grand a month, you wanted to change your house and your car. And the desire for you to change your house and change your car is what got you into high ticket sales. It's what got you into mentorship. It's what got you into all of the things that were able to make that happen. That motivation then got you to do the actions that you needed, and those actions got you the result that you needed. So that's a good thing. However, because you've now got the result you needed, you no longer have the motivation to keep doing the actions that pushed you to that next level. And you end up in what's called the dead zone, where you're basically just coasting on the results of previous time and effort that you've put into, previous time and effort to do your basic sales training, previous pain and frustration to get out of your old situation. And so you end up in this place where you no longer have that fire under your ass. If you're ever in the dead zone, what will happen is you'll stop following the formula for excellence, and you'll stop following the unicorn closer trifecta, and you'll stop moving further ahead on those 7 money chokeholds. You'll just get stuck, because to move along those 7 things, to follow the formula for excellence, to actually follow the unicorn trifecta, to schedule the time in, to show up in the right way, you need to have that burning motivation that there is something in your life that you no longer want to be experiencing. The small house that you live in, the slow car that you drive, the loser that you are as a human being, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Part of how we do that, to constantly make sure that you shouldn't be in the dead zone, is and I are always creating things like these events that if you choose to not come to, you are choosing to increase the likelihood that you keep landing in the dead zone. Part of coming to these events is not just the physical training that we'll do, but it's so that you get out of that dead zone. You're like, oh shit, I've never been to Cabo before. I didn't realize how nice the houses are. Now I want to live life like that. Okay, so next time we have an event and you think, you know what, yeah, taking a plane there and coming there for a couple of days, taking 2 days off of calls, I'm not really sure. Remember the dead zone. Remember that you have a much higher likelihood of ending up in that place if you don't keep putting yourself in these new environments. Make sense?
So would you say that like the antidote to being in the dead zone, because I personally feel like I've fallen into that trap,
Yep.
is what, finding a distaste in your current situation?
Yep. It's finding a distaste in your current situation, but the prerequisite to finding a distaste is to keep putting yourself in environments where you'll feel that distaste. You're not going to sit there one day and just, be like, oh, I feel a distaste with my situation, my environment. You have to consciously push yourself to do those things. Yeah. Okay?
I've heard a saying before that is constructively dissatisfied.
Oh, I like that. Constructively dissatisfied, yes. Yep. That brings me on to another one, which is what's called commission alchemy. I don't know if any of you have heard this one yet. Any of you heard this one? Commission alchemy? You should probably watch my YouTube videos, guys. So on YouTube, I called it sales alchemy because it's higher click-through rate, but I'm going to call it commission alchemy because it makes more sense. Who knows what alchemy is, guys? Yes, but would you change? So what's, it's not just changing one material into something else. There is a specific direction that you're going when you change that material to another material. You're changing one material to a material that's more valuable. You are increasing the value of one material by changing it into another. You would turn, wood into diamonds, for example. You wouldn't turn wood into sand. So well, they're kind of the same value. There's no point. There's nothing special about being an alchemist that can turn, wood into tin. The whole point is to turn one material into something more valuable, okay? Thank you very much. This principle, commission alchemy, if the name doesn't speak for itself, you need to be thinking, how do I turn my commission into something more valuable than the commission? Every time you get commissions, guys, if you just look at that commission and go, wow, I've got commission, you are not going to keep moving further ahead on those 7 steps. You have to receive your commission and utilize the principle of alchemically converting that commission into something more valuable. Okay? Now, as you're earning commissions, There are 3 things that you can do with your commission to alchemically change it to something more valuable. And there is a specific order in which you need to do these things. Anybody have any idea what the first one is?
The first one be, I know this is kind of like it's not really an investment, but the emergency fund.
That is one, but it's not the first one. Sorry, correct, Dr. Robin. The first thing you have to do with your commission is use that commission to multiply the rate of commission that you earn month to month to month. If you take your $10,000 commission and you just put it in a bank account and just leave it there, you are not alchemically multiplying that commission. If you take that $10,000 and you go out and buy a Rolex, you are not multiplying that commission. The very first thing you have to do is take that 10K to make sure that next month you make 12, or next month you make 15, or next month you make 20. The number one way to do that is to stay in this mastermind. So every time you have your commissions, you want to make sure that it gives you access to internal mastery training and scriptless selling training, to events like this, to all of the things that are going to multiply the amount of money you make next month, directly multiplying your monthly commission, okay? The second thing you need to do is what Victoria said. After you keep investing money, and by the way, these kind of overlap, guys. Like you won't just have $3,000 at the end of the month. You'll have access to multiple layers of these things, but don't do the third one having missed the first or the second. It's always got to be in order, okay? The second thing you want to do is you want to take excess commission and you want to put it into a rainy day fund. And you want to get to a point where you have at least 50 grand, ideally 100,000. But remember, they overlap a little bit, so there is some slight variation. Now, in order to be alchemically multiplying your commission, why do we need to put a rainy day fund together? How does that multiply your next month's commission?
Your state.
What specifically to your state?
When you have 100 grand in the bank, you show up different.
Does that make sense, everyone?
It doesn't matter what happens here,
You make
yeah.
better decisions.
Correct.
Not based in scarcity.
Exactly.
The secret to money is having some. I've always found that when I go into my bank and I can see, like I've just invested 10K commissions in,
Yep.
and seeing that stack up, it just reinforces the belief that like I'm very capable of making
Exactly.
money.
I do have a question though. What if you like take some of your drive away knowing that it's there?
It's a good question. I mean, if by having 50 grand sat in a bank account, it's taken your drive away,
100K.
or 100K, well, that's why it's a slightly varied number. It could be 50, it could be 70 for you, it could be 100. That's part of being a self-actualized closer, guys, is you have to be aware of where these lines are for you. Like Nicole is saying, well, I could have 100 grand in my bank and think, I don't really need to show up in a decisive way to my sales calls. I don't really need to try because I've got so much money cash in the bank, it's not a big deal. That's true, but more importantly than removing the drive would be removing the feeling of scarcity. That's more of a priority. But what you're about to say is the third and final one. So it's the next level, but there is an order to this. First one is multiplying your active income, and I'll give a story. I think it was Alex's call review. Alex was on a call with a prospect, and the prospect hadn't taken action on the training that they needed to build their YouTube channel. And as Alex dug into the data and I was digging into it with him on the call review, the person had said, I've saved up 10 years of savings. I haven't taken action on the program that I need because I wanted to save up 10 years of savings first. Can you guys all see how that's the wrong order? The first and foremost thing that this person should have done is not save up years of savings, it's do whatever investment he needed to do to multiply his active income, his month to month to month income. That is always the first thing that you need to do with your money. Multiply your income. Second thing you need to do, remove any feelings of not being good enough, scarcity, being like, do I buy this or do I buy that? Or, can I stay in the mastermind but I don't have any savings to do it? Remove any of those stupid decisions by having a rainy day fund. That will change how you show up to your sales calls. And if you change how you show up to your sales calls and you change not making dumb decisions, you will alchemically multiply your commissions month on month on month, okay? The third and final thing you need to do, which is exactly what Nicole said, so I'm glad that she's thinking ahead, is you need to spend your money on more and more and more and more expensive shit over time. When I spent my first few $1,000s on a pen, the first time I did it, I was like, fuck, that's a lot of money on a pen. After I'd spent that on a pen, all of a sudden I was like, oh, it's not a big deal for me, that amount of money anymore. Then it was a watch. Then it can be a house. Then it can be a private jet. Whatever it is, you need to keep spending bigger and bigger amounts of money, because what that does for you is it resets your financial barometer. If you do not do that third one, guys and girls, you will get into the state that Nicole said, which could also be called the dead zone, of like, yeah, you know what, I don't have anything else that I want to get to as far as the next level. So every time you're getting your commissions, guys, now you have a model, you have a thingified branded name, which is Commission Alchemy, for what you need to do with your commissions. Every single thing that you're doing as a closer, saying this as humbly as I possibly can, I have already figured out for you guys. I know how you should spend your money. I know how you should show up. I know the methodology that you should use for selling. I know the internal mastery things that you need to do. I've gone through all of these things before, guys. So all you need to do whenever you're on your path as a closer is refer back to this How to Become a 100K a Month Closer handbook, and I've literally got everything laid out for you. There's nothing that we haven't figured out. Make sense? These things overlap a little bit. They're not like one or the other. How do you know when you should move into the next territory or the other? Is, did you accomplish the result of what you needed to accomplish from the previous level? So let me explain it. The result of level 1 is, am I actively multiplying my income? If you haven't achieved that result, do not progress to level 2 or progress to level 3. Level 2, have I accomplished the result of no longer feeling in scarcity? If you feel in scarcity at any point in your financial situation, do not spend money on any luxury items. Spend money on luxury items when you've already removed that feeling of scarcity. Oh shit, I'm tight on money. I'm having to choose this or choose that, or I'm worried, should I spend it? Should I not spend it? If you've removed that feeling of insecurity financially and that scarcity, you can now progress to level 3, which, by the way, you have to progress to level 3, because if you don't progress to that level of I'm constantly spending bigger and bigger amounts on bigger things, you will not reset your financial barometer, which needs to be reset to push you to the next level financially. You will not hit $100,000 a month in commission if the most amount of money you spend on a monthly basis is $3K. You won't do it. Your financial barometer is just not going to allow you to have that drive to, I need $100K a month in commission. When you drop 50 grand on a watch, you're like, fuck, I need to be making $100K a month. UM and I were both joking / not joking, being like, these business class flights are just poverty, like absolute poverty. I cannot stand this anymore. I need to make more money.
The step 1 of multiplying your income, when it comes to health, would that be considered, like if you're investing in health, and because you're investing in health, you feel better, which is indirectly multiplying your income, so that would be step 1.
Absolutely.
Instead of step 3, which would be like spend your money on expensive shit.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, here's a question. So for me personally, like I just invested in Pilates, which is expensive, like
Yep.
private Pilates,
Yep.
it's like $1,000 a month.
Right.
Is that like overextending? Like it almost blends the line of like being expensive shit, but it's also health. So where does that, I guess my question would be like, am I over leveraging myself by doing that, or is that something that is going to be better in the long run?
Only you know. Only you will know how you feel. But I love the question. So going back to point 1, if you are going to bed every night and you're getting 5 hours of sleep because you haven't invested in a nicer place or the blackout film or whatever, you are losing money. In other words, you're not multiplying your commissions by not going and investing in whatever that health thing is. If you, for whatever reason, really struggle to stay in better shape without a personal trainer, and because you're not in good shape, when you're on your sales calls, you've got brain fog because you're not feeling good, healthily, then step 1 would include doing whatever you need to do for your health. Yeah, so anything where it's directly going to multiply the amount of money that you will make in the next 30 days, that would fit into step 1. Step 2 is just putting that rainy day fund together and going, okay, I don't feel in scarcity anymore. I don't feel that attachment to closing a sale. Or, you know, I've had, who was it? It was Matt, wherever Matt is. I did a call review for Matt, and he wasn't doing the things he needed to do on his call. And I dug into why is that? And he said, well, you know, I don't remember the exact time, a few weeks where it wasn't very good. And I said, okay, so you're in scarcity. And because he was in scarcity, he was overly thinking about what he needs to do on the sales call and coming in with that, you know, perfectionism mindset that actually was meaning he wasn't doing the things that he was supposed to do. If he'd have just had 100 grand in the bank, that wouldn't have happened. He would have just turned up to that call of, oh, I had a few weeks where it wasn't a great couple of weeks, but no big deal. So that's why step 2 is you have to remove that environment where you'll ever be in scarcity. And then step 3 is keep keep just buying shit that resets your financial barometer, so that as you're making more money every month because you've multiplied your income from step 1 and you're not in scarcity from step 2, that 10K a month that's now gone to 20K, that's now gone to 30K, it doesn't feel like you've got an additional $20,000 lying around, because the buying power that you have is actually decreasing at the same level, because the cost of the things that you're buying are getting significantly more and more and more expensive. It's like when people say, you know, one of the mistakes that people make is as they make more money, they increase their expenses. So they're not actually getting ahead. They're just making more money, but spending more money. They've gone from a $1,000 a month rental to a $5,000 a month rental. So even though they've gone from, you know, $50,000 a year income to $100,000 a year, they're actually no further ahead. This is the reciprocal of that, which is if you're not making the purchases that you buy bigger and bigger and bigger, as you're making more and more money, as Nicole was saying, you're falling back into more and more relaxation of, oh, I don't need more money. You don't want to be in that position. You want to be like, oh, I'm buying a pair of shoes, but instead of my shoes being $20, they're now $1,200. So I need more money. You need to keep pushing yourself in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you go about, like, can you go deeper into level 3?
Do you do what?
Can you go deeper on level 3?
Sure.
Because, like, you said, like, you're not going to hit 100 grand if you make if your expenses are 2 to 3K. I'm like, I'm just, like, wondering, what should I be balling out on? Like, what else should I do?
Well, you ball out on whatever you want, but I think a part of knowing what to ball out on is coming to things like these events, you know, seeing the experiences. I think another part of it is, for me, when it comes to like balling out on things, it's just having fun with it. Like, I remember when UM told me to buy a pair of shoes, and I was like, what? Like that amount of money for a pair of shoes? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have fun with this. And I went out and bought 4 pairs of them over the course of the next few months. And it's just enjoying whatever it is for you. It could be a watch, could be a car, could be a vacation, could be treating your family. You know, a few weeks ago, I spent, I think it was 10 grand and just bought both of my parents' business class tickets to come out and see me, took them out on a helicopter ride, which was 5 grand. And all of a sudden you spent $10,000 in 2 weeks. So it's just whatever comes up in your mind after you've done point 1 and point 2, the next thing is just enjoy spending money. But as you're enjoying spending money, you need to get comfortable to enjoy spending larger and larger and larger amounts. Otherwise, if you imagine the person that goes from earning $10,000 a month to hypothetically earning $100,000 a month, but they've never increased their expenses. How would they ever have not got stuck on that journey with comfort, being too comfortable? Like, oh, they make 10 grand a month and they set out on this aim to hit 100,000. They get to 25,000, they're not spending more money. They'll just be so comfortable with the additional 15,000 a month that they're not spending. They've already got their 100 grand rainy day fund. There's no way they'll keep pushing and pushing and pushing to get to 100,000. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, as you go on your journey, going from 20,000 to 50,000 to 100,000, I'm not saying don't increase the rainy day fund. You could still put more money in there. You could also buy some investments. You could get a property if you want. But you just have to be using that money and moving more money around so that you have the need to have a bigger amount of monthly income. Otherwise, you'll just be in the comfort zone. I was literally writing in my journal, I was doing, which goes to the next point actually, is the commission calculator, which we did this exercise in LA. You have to be running the numbers, like how many leads do you need, what price point do you need, what does your close rate need to be in order to hit the numbers that you want to hit. So when I was on the, poor person business class flight yesterday, I was in my journal like, okay, if I want to be able to drop 120 grand on a private jet flight, how much do I need to be taking home from the business? How many members does that need to be? What time period do I want to get to that goal? How many members does that need to be that we're increasing by weekly basis? What does that include if it's including our churn rate, people that leave the mastermind? And I was just running through the numbers. I was calculating, this is how much I need to be making. I would never have sat there and done that if I'd have never been on a private jet and think, oh, actually, this is so poor being in business class. Each of these things on each of these levels, guys, is changing something. The first level is changing the rate at which you make money. Changing the rate at which you make money. I make $10,000 a month. You could calculate that down to your hourly rate. You change that to I make $20,000 a month. Level 1 is changing the rate at which you make money. Level 2 is changing the way you feel. How do I feel on a day-to-day basis? And a big part of how you feel is going to be the amount of money that's in your bank account. And the third and final one is changing the perspective that you have over money. This is a lot of money. Oh, actually, no, this is not a lot of money. Each of those levels, which is why it's alchemical, guys, it's commission alchemy, is changing something. You take that money that you made at the end of that 30-day month, and you put that money to an outcome, which is I want to change one of these three things. First of all, change the rate at which you make money. Second of all, change the way you feel about your financial situation. And third of all, change your perspectives about money. If you're not making more money, you are screwing up one of those three things. If each month, month to month to month, you didn't go up in money, you screwed up one of those three things. If you're still in the mastermind, which you all are, you're probably screwing up number 2. Some of you may even be screwing up number 3, meaning you're actually just sitting on, you made $25,000, $35,000 last month in commission. What did you buy? Nothing? Well, okay, maybe you put it into your rainy day fund, that's fine. If you've already got your 50 grand in a rainy day fund and you just made 35 grand and in the last 6 months, you haven't bought something that was more expensive than you've ever bought before, you're screwing up number 3 because month to month to month, your perspective of money isn't changing. Does that make sense? Oh, it seems like it all landed now all of a sudden. Okay, good. Part of being a unicorn closer is being self-aware. How do I feel day to day? When I take my sales calls, do I feel like I need this deal? I need to close this deal. Well, the root cause of that is you didn't do commission alchemy over the last 6 months and you just kept taking your money and you probably jumped to step 3 and started buying business class tickets. Well, then you screwed up the process that we've laid out for you here. Something that said before, which I'm going to slightly disagree with what he said. He said, when we were booking the jet, he sent me a message and said, this is not responsible. That's what I want to clarify for all of you guys, and it's why we're going through this exercise right now. If you have a real mentor, they are able to see ahead. They're able to see around the corners before you're able to see around them. Could see for me, and I did lay it out to him pretty clearly. He was like, yeah, Josh is kind of pretty comfortable at this level of the mastermind. Like, he's got enough money a month. He doesn't really need more money. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to make him need more money because knows, as he said in the other room before, he sees more in me than I can currently see it myself because he's the mentor. He's ahead of me. And he knew this is the tool that I need to implement onto Josh to get him to the next level, which is we're going to do something very responsible, which is make him spend more money than he's ever spent before on something that he would have probably never thought on his own. Oh, you know what? I need to take a private jet to go somewhere. So when you say it's not responsible, I know what you mean and I know the clarification, but it's actually the most responsible thing the mentor can do is see what your next roadblock is before you see it, which is why I'm taking you through this entire blueprint of UCM, which is everything that you're facing right now and everything that you're going to face up to $100,000 a month in commission. We have already fixed it. We've already solved it for you. It's all going to be laid out for you if you stay here and you actually realize this big picture blueprint. Does that make sense? There is many times where this is a lesson that told me that I've ignored, so it's not that didn't tell me not to do this. I've said to my mum, oh mum, I spent $1,200 on a pair of shoes, or I spent this amount on this, or this amount on this, or blank on a watch. And she's like, what? That's just ridiculous. Why would you spend that? And I say this to give you the example of there are so many people that will give you advice, yet they are in a worse position than you. I make a lot more money than my mum, yet she would make the judgment of what is the boring accountant, ironically my mum's an accountant, the boring accountant perspective of what is fiscally responsible. The people that you should take advice from are people that have actually accomplished what you want to accomplish, as long as they actually have your best interest at heart and they're telling you, hey, I'm telling you this because it is actually financially responsible at the right level, once you're at level 3, to spend money on things that you could say accountant-wise are stupid to spend on, because as I explained it to my mom, although she still doesn't really get it, is every time I spend more money on something than I've ever spent before, I make more money. I make a multiple back on that amount of money. And I personally believe if I didn't keep spending more money and enjoying the money, I wouldn't keep multiplying my income. So that's why this lesson is what it is. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay, cool. So you shouldn't try and change someone's perspective that hasn't asked you for it. But another part that's very important is if someone like a family member is telling you, oh, this is stupid, you don't say this back to the person, but in your mind, you need to have a very clear line of who are you actually listening to and following the advice from. And so like, when my mum would say to me something like, oh, you know, that's silly to spend $5,000 on a pen, I wouldn't say it back to my mum, but in my mind, I'd be like, well, how do you know? You've never done it, so you're giving advice on something you don't have experience to. Now, I'll say it one more time. I am not saying that out loud to the person. I'm just saying it in my head because it's very important that you have a way to be clear on who you're actually going to follow advice from.